Episode 6, A Year Without Dad. At age 12, I should be recalling significant father-son moments that I could look back upon and say how such times shaped my life for the better. But those moments are few and far between. I had just finished 6th grade and was about to start my junior high school years. During that long, hot summer, I was filled with both dread and excitement about entering this next educational, traumatizing phase of my life. Dad seemed to be less present in our home life than ever before due to being at the bar after work, until coming home late at night. Alka-Seltzer tablets were a staple in our bathroom, along with a drinking glass that looked like they came from a cheap hotel. We certainly didn't have a set of them in the kitchen cupboard. Dad would vomit frequently in the mornings. Little was said in the mornings because he was so hungover. He would even add alcohol to his coffee. Is this what they call hair of the dog? On one memorable occasion at dinner, I remember him telling all of us that he was going to Vietnam. Forks stopped in mid-air, total silence and thoughts racing through my mother's and 2 boys' minds. Nightly, we were getting the latest horrible scenes of this terrible war from home ingrained into our consciousness by the likes of Walter Cronkite and Eric Sverensson. You could not unsee those images. Increasingly, there were scenes of tens of thousands of college students protesting across the country in opposition to the war. I came from a military family, so I naturally labeled these long-haired hippies as unpatriotic. Just the thought of them running away to Canada to dodge the war set my blood boiling. Then, when mid-air forks were finally placed on plates to finish contemplating this bombshell news Dad had so casually dropped on us, he then added that he was given a choice of serving 1 year in Vietnam or 3 years in Honolulu. Wait, what? Wasn't that Hawaii? Hadn't just watched Elvis in the movie called Blue Hawaii. I desperately wanted to go there one day. If bucket lists were a thing back then, they would have been on mine. The swaying palms, sandy beaches, and impossibly blue waters. Dad was sacrificing himself, and by extension us, to go to a country that was constantly aflame with napalm, snakes, and an ever-growing body count, as seen in the way of impossibly long rows of flag-draped coffins arriving by the day. It just made no sense. Mom seldom raised her voice, but this startling admission of choice by my father did indeed cause her to raise her voice. Loudly, what would happen if he were to die? What about the boys? What was he thinking? I know that my brother and I started to cry with dinner long forgotten. If Mum had been a smoker, I'm sure she would have lit up right then and there. The best, worst, was yet to come. He was leaving in 2 days. He had known for weeks beforehand and didn't share it with family until 2 days before departure. Maybe that had been for the best, as far as the boys were concerned, so we wouldn't have to fret over it for 2 weeks until departure, but for my mother to be left out of the loop. Unthinkable. I would become a teenager in 7 months. He wouldn't be there for my birthday. Well, it had happened before, so not really that big of a deal. I was now starting to put the pieces of all this new information into my head under the headings of good and bad. Good as far as getting respite from his yelling, constant displays of domestic authoritarianism, slaps and beatings. Even things like being told that my morning breath was bad. That shamed me more than you can imagine for some odd reason. On the other side of this partisan aisle were the family dynamics of it all. Going off to war, leaving my mother alone, and the very real chance of getting bombed to smithereens and somber-faced military officials knocking at the front door to deliver the news. As seen on TV, the morning of his departure, he woke me up around 4 to say goodbye to me with warnings to be good and to watch over my mother and brother. He was face to face with me. I was silent for the most part because of remembered shame of bad breath, but I hugged him just the same. And then he was gone. I couldn't get back to sleep after that. The red taillights of a military sedan finally disappear into the pre-dawn darkness, finalizing it all. Was I liberated or was I grieving? It's hard to say. We lived in a 3-bedroom home with only 1 bathroom. Even though it was summer vacation, the effects of his absence in the terms of freeing up more bathroom time were immediately felt, along with now missing Alka-Seltzer tablets and drinking glass. Mom went into action. The house was aired out from past cigarette smoke. Liquor bottles and beer cans disappeared overnight. Other than photos of us boys on the walls, there weren't any formal family group pictures. If there had been, I wouldn't have put it past my mother to cut his face out. She benefited the most from his deployment. The bruises would heal, and her mental trauma could begin to be assuaged to some degree. I dare say that she had more of a pep to her step as the weeks progressed. My brother missed Dad more than I did, for sure. He was aligned with Dad's love of fishing and hunting, while I could relate to neither. Overall, the mood in the house gradually became happier. I know that I certainly took immediate steps to flaunt perceived newfound freedoms, such as growing my hair longer and leaving the house for extended periods of time while Mum was at work. I don't remember her constantly checking up on me throughout the day, thanks to cell phones not having been invented yet. Maybe Mum has discovered some new and joyful emancipations of her own. I remember that she did have a brief affair with a married psychologist while Dad was away. He was a short but handsome man of Philippine descent. We played with his sons a lot in our younger years during sleepovers and family barbecues. The only reason I ever found out about this affair was when Mum confided to me that she was not well because she'd had to have an abortion and was going to miss work for a while. I was livid after hearing this news. I slammed the front door hard on the way out to ride my 10-speed Schwinn without any thought of direction. Shame and betrayal. I was not quite mature enough to articulate the reasons for my mother's actions in my head, unable to connect the links of my father's constant belittling of her and essentially driving her further away from him. My mother was crying uncontrollably when she told me the news of the abortion. It had to be done because of gynecological reasons that were putting my mother's life at risk. Eventually, I learned that I would have had another brother, albeit from a different father. The fact that she held this fetus in her arms until the nurse had to take it away is remembered now in both the awfulness and sadness of it all.